Good afternoon, Chairman Argel, Senator Killian, and members of the committee. It is an honor to participate in today's discussion. My name is Jason Landau Goodman, and I am the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Youth Congress, our statewide LGBT youth organization. I am humbled today that we are the first formal LGBT advocates invited to speak before the Senate Majority Policy Committee. I hope this is only the beginning of our dialogue on the urgent issues impacting over 500,000 Pennsylvanians who are LGBT. The grip that hatred, violence, and discrimination has on LGBT people is real and permeates throughout many of our lives. We need hate crimes protections. LGBT people, people with disabilities, and others that are marginalized in our society are targeted not only for the violence itself, but upon their very core. We are members of your family. We're your teachers, doctors, and technicians. We are in every legislative district and community. While there are many urgent issues that we need to address for LGBT Pennsylvanians, this one is specifically that we should not be targeted for violent crimes. Simply put, in 2020, you should not be killed or beaten in Pennsylvania for being LGBT. Pennsylvania is noted as having the first LGBT inclusive law in the nation passed by a Republican Senate, Republican House, and signed into law by a Republican governor. That was nearly 20 years ago. We are calling on the legislature to again pass inclusive hate crimes protections. We remain now one of 13 states that do not have hate crimes protections for sexual orientation and gender identity. I want to stress the importance of two perspectives today. First, hate-based violence does not occur in a vacuum. And second, hate crimes protections alone will not end the cruelty of this violence. Hate crime is fueled by hate. As long as there is hate, there will be hate crimes. Our communities and the General Assembly have the duty to take actions that promote a society which provides equal opportunity and equal protection for all. Ending hate crimes towards LGBT people means sharing positive messages about them in your communities. Ending hate crimes towards LGBT people means enacting non-discrimination protections. Ending hate will take many forms, but we need to continue to put our hand to the plow in this vital work. We must not only be reactive to hate, which is what hate crimes protections are, but we must seek to be preventative. We must also pursue real justice in each case of a hate crime. While we traditionally consider hate crimes to be limited to instances when there's a crime that meets the elements of the ethnic intimidation statute, in reality, these acts are often broad and insidious. For example, when I was the chair of the LGBT Jewish student organization at the University of Pennsylvania, if we were to have experienced a hate crime during one of our programs, would it have been classified as a hate crime? Would it have been on the basis of my religion or being part of the LGBT community? Sometimes victims are not explicitly targeted because of their identity, but are susceptible to the violence because of their identity. When an LGBT person is murdered by an intimate partner, in the course of forced participation in an underground economy such as sex work, or by suicide, their deaths are no less tragic. Hate is the fuel for the actions they faced, but who is responsible? These cases may not be held accountable as hate crimes, but they should not be allowed to stand and are part of our conversation today. We have a responsibility to end these acts of violence rooted in hate. This is what I mean when we urge a consideration of a holistic approach to ending hate-based violence in our Commonwealth. Ensuring justice in the face of hate-based violence outside of the criminal justice system is also a responsibility of the legislature. Even if we incarcerate more people for these crimes, is that always appropriate? Holding hate-based violence accountable might not always look like longer prison sentences. If, as a victim of a hate crime, I had a choice of a sentence enhancement being longer prison term or a restorative justice practice such as service at an LGBT youth homeless shelter, I would support the latter. Any approach to hate crimes legislation should be joined with these efforts that promote inclusion in our communities, equal protection, and educate students about empathy, nonviolence, and respect for others. Any approach to hate crimes should include significant investments in victim services so that survivors can heal from traumatic experiences. And finally, any approach should provide meaningful options for restorative justice for those who commit these crimes. Finally, I would like to share the following statement by Judy Shepard, the mother of Matthew Shepard, whose brutal murder in Wyoming 22 years ago this week shocked the conscience of our nation and helped lead to federal hate crimes protections. When we lost Matt in 1998, one of the most shocking things we learned was how few states had hate crimes laws that included the LGBT community. How few states had hate crime laws at all, in fact. And even more, the lack of federal protection, even in capital crimes. Our family felt we had an opportunity, an obligation really, to use the spotlight of the media and policymakers to push these important protections through. And over a long, long time, we have made some important progress. But the most heartbreaking defeats we have endured weren't when we fell short on passing a law, but when a hard-won hate crime law is actually taken off the books, never to be replaced. Struggling for slow progress is one kind of frustration. Actively being knocked back is another entirely. Pennsylvania has an opportunity now to reclaim its progress on behalf of all its vulnerable citizens, and we applaud this body for taking the first vital steps to do so. I promise you, you won't regret it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.